So it's a short panel.
Yes.
Regulatory clarity.
Regulatory clarity.
More now.
We need more. Now is the time. There's some momentum going here. And just going to start with your tenure in Congress. You were the chairman of the Financial Services Committee. And really, I think you kind of laid the groundwork for crypto legislation in the House. So what are you most proud about from that time as chairman? Or your time was in Congress?
We passed the first bill out of committee that's on crypto.
Yep.
Number one. Number two, we were the first chamber in the House to pass crypto legislation. We did that last Congress with a market structure Fit 21, which is now the Clarity Act, the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act, or the damn Clarity Act. Nobody calls it that. Sorry for the CNN audience, C-SPAN audience. But I'm most proud of achieving that. And the bipartisan vote that we got in a really broken Congress, where we had very few bipartisan votes. We got a 2/3 vote in the House, with 70 Democratic members voting with almost all Republicans. Huge piece of momentum going into the election year. Very proud of that. And really, from an outsider's perspective, now that I'm out of government, to see what now the Senate has done with the Genius Act. You see bipartisan cooperation. You see cooperation across committees, which is and across the Capitol. And to see a president who's pro-crypto now. It's a marked change from where we started, where I started following crypto during the financial crisis.
Yeah, it's definitely a different feel in Washington for crypto from where we were just a year ago. And so there's a lot of momentum, a lot of great things happening. I am going to ask you why there are two bills, because I think you have some great insight into why we have both, one, a stablecoin legislation and then a separate market structure. But I wanted to touch on something you mentioned with working with the committees. One of the things that I found most refreshing, I guess, I was a former Hill staffer, watching your staff watching the members work across committees. Sometimes that's more difficult than working across the aisle. What lessons did you learn, and how did that come to be? How did you get to a point where you said, we've got to work together and get legislation done?
Okay, so from an outside, this is something important to understand about how Congress works, and why we have some misfires in basic governance. But we have committees of jurisdiction. So I spent my time in Congress working to be chair of my committee, the Financial Services Committee. And when you get there, your power is derived from your jurisdiction, the part that you have say-so over. And when you rub up against another committee's jurisdiction, you want to take their jurisdiction, not give anything up. Like, this is like real estate, right? If your neighbor will give you another few feet of turf, you will absolutely take it, right? Or you'll figure out, in a very crass way, figure out how to take it. And so what I had to come to terms with, and my staff did a great job of the actual real coordination. But we had to coordinate on substance of what we are willing to give up in the Financial Services Committee in the House to the Ag Committee in the House, or what we thought we're giving up, even though there was lack of clarity. And then they had to have an understanding of how we worked on the Financial Services Committee. And so they had to give up. So a great example of this is if you raise money, that is done through securities regulation. The Ag Committee wanted it to be done through your previous domain, the CFTC. The CFTC does not raise money. They do not. That is not what they do. They're not around a capital formation. We do that. So they had to admit something they did not want to admit. And Glenn Thompson, GT in the House, is the chair of the Ag Committee. We had to not only coordinate on policy, we had to then coordinate on bringing our members up to speed and getting a committee hearing on the same day, a joint hearing together, and a markup on the same day around the same policy. So if they made a change in their committee, we had to give them a thumbs up or thumbs down on whether or not we were good with it in my committee, and vice versa. So it's this whole moving process of coordination. It's hard enough to do one thing out of one committee, much less across two committees, much less across two committees in a divided Congress, where everybody's in fistfight. Well, literally in fistfights. It was its own viral moment, the opening of the last Congress. I'm in the background. I'm like the little guy in the background. That's a different story of my service in Congress, the little guy in the background. But to make that, to have that coordination and to do it, and to actually have members feel good about the final product. And we were able to do that. And we unlocked Democratic votes on the Ag Committee. We unlocked Democratic votes on the Financial Services Committee around policy and substance. And then the pro-crypto world made this bipartisan by making policymakers hear the fact that we actually need action here, we need clarity in order to get something good out of this new technology. So that is really the wind in the sails that took it across the House floor, and now taking it into law.
Yeah, and I think that is a great background because unless you're in it, you might not understand the delicate balance that you are trying to manage to keep members, get members, and make sure you have the votes, not just to get out of committee, but to get off the floor, and with a good, strong vote with bipartisan support. So applaud you for that effort and what you did, and I think that is really bringing us into what will be Crypto Week in the House, so we'll have clarity. We'll also have some form of a stablecoin bill. I think the audience would probably love to hear why are they separate? Why can't we do stablecoin and market structure legislation all as one?
All right. So thank you for this question. I'm at pains on this because we have two pieces of legislation. It's my fault. And you have to make decisions. So everybody wants to think that we can make laws via scientific method. That is never the case. We have compromises, right? Why do you get a driver's license in most states at 16? That's not science, right? We're not supposed to give 16-year-olds like a big beast to drive around and hurt people with.
In South Dakota, it's 14. Which is even scarier.
Right. Which also makes you scarier because your capacity now is so much greater. But we have these breakpoints in law. We have all these breakpoints for practical reasons rather than scientific. So in the House, where we stood going into the in the summer of 2017, I had spent a year hammering on the then chair, Maxine Waters, to move on crypto legislation. And the big enchilada here is market structure, getting clarity around the definition of a digital asset, which we don't have in federal law even today. We don't have a definition, but what is a digital asset? We had Gary Gensler running roughshod over this. The CFTC needing power so it could do the work that you desired and a bipartisan group at CFTC desired. And I'm trying to get a piece of legislation in a really tough time. It's an election year. Republicans were slated to take the House. And so Maxine Waters is the chair, but she knows the next election's not in her favor. So all these things were favorable for me to dislodge something on crypto, something. And so Maxine was like, well, we can do something on stable coins because New York regulates it. We can basically copy the New York law and federalize it, and there's some good that comes out of this, and there we go. So it was my effort to get a piece of pro-crypto legislation out of an anti-crypto Congress that we dislodged this piece of it because it was the easiest thing to do. Stable coins, it is, with all due respect, and I'm Southern, so you can say anything you want after that.
It's like, bless your heart.
Yes. It's exactly. It is so simple it is a cut and paste job of existing regulatory powers, and you enable it, and you define what is a stable coin. And then the means of exchange we do through market structure. So it was actually just defining what New York is already defined. The market is already defined. One-to-one backing. We want to know what's behind it. We want to use it as a boring thing to do an interesting thing. No offense, right? But the exciting bit was the on-ramp to actual market structure and the big enchilada here of defining a digital asset and means of exchange and all that other stuff. So let's do the simple thing. Let's do the warm-up. Let's do like the little light jog before we run. And so we started with that, and we kept that process going, and I had hopes that I could get a huge bipartisan vote with Maxine Waters out of stablecoins. We could never get there on policy. And we could never get there on policy because of bad actors in the White House, in the Biden White House, that were more anti-crypto than even Gary Gensler, and more duplicitous even, and Treasury not being willing to fully engage and say this is important, the Biden Treasury. So when it flipped and we got control of the House, I thought Maxine would be liberated from Treasury and the White House and could more deeply engage, and she never would. So this is a legacy piece, and I feel bad that we have two separate bills, which means the market structure bill is now going to be separate from a stables bill signing. So in that way, it delays the bigger deal on market structure, and in that way, I feel guilty that I had a deep hand in separating those two items.
You shouldn't feel too guilty because stablecoin legislation is going to be law soon, and I think that is remarkable. It's historic, and it's the first piece of meaningful crypto legislation that'll ever be signed into law. So I think you did us all a favor by negotiating with Maxine Waters and getting to where you did on stablecoin. You really did lay the groundwork for what is now the Genius in the Stable Act, not to be confused with the Stable Genius Act. Yeah. So you mentioned Gary Gensler, and I would love to have kind of a behind the scenes, you called him up to testify. I'm sure you had him in your office. What did your conversations with Chairman Gensler, what were they? How did you work with him when he was so focused on regulation to enforcement and you were trying to build policy around this area?
I think Gary got it. I think well, first of all, you have to do two separate things. You have to determine whether or not somebody is smart, and that they're a straight shooter, yeah. Right? So you can engage with somebody who is both deeply knowledgeable on a subject matter and has the capacity to be smarter over time with study. Yeah. And you can engage with somebody who is a straight shooter, right? Meaning, I can get there, I cannot get there. The negotiations you and I know from both Capitol Hill through the regulatory agencies. And that piece of straight shooter, honest broker was lacking with Gary. He was much more political in his use of regulatory power than any previous head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. He had a deep understanding of what is digital, what is crypto. He did. Let's got to admit it. But he was not a straight shooter about what he was doing. What I think he was doing is he had this idea that you have, like, let's just rewind, right? 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago at this time. Where are we? Well, you have, the American people don't know what the hell crypto is, right? A lot has changed in 4 years. You had Trump leave office not pro-crypto. Trump won, not pro-crypto. Trump Treasury won, not pro-crypto. So missed opportunity in the first Trump administration. There were no crypto voters. There was no awareness driven of this. No one was activated that your livelihood and this technology's livelihood in the United States, not globally, it's going to happen globally, But here in the United States, it's weak. So he thought, I will come in with a mighty power of the federal agency. I will take the softest target I can possibly take. I will pin them down, and then I'll get submission. And getting submission out of a private sector individual, a private sector company, you get submission out of them through your regulatory powers and via the courts. And once you have them submission, you write rules on their backs. Okay? So it is regulation through enforcement because you have a group of innovators that are weak and relatively powerless. That is exactly what happened. It is that crass. And he thought, we're going to get submission. What they didn't understand is when, like the Cool Hand Luke moment, when you have nothing, you've got nothing to lose. And you had the whole world of crypto say, well, I can't use the exact language that I'm. Let's go.
We'll keep it PG.
Right? So crypto said, oh, we got it now. You've made this existential to us. We're not really partisan people. We really don't care about politics. We really don't care about Washington. We don't really care about this stuff. Now you said, yeah, we have to. So I want to thank Gary for not being a straight shooter with me, but for understanding crypto enough and his regulatory powers enough and misreading the market, misreading crypto so deeply that he helped activate this world of crypto voters that really changed the course of the last presidential election, changed the course of congressional elections, both in the House and the Senate in bipartisan ways. New members of the Senate that are Democratic members of the Senate are pro-crypto disproportionately to any other group of elected officials. Democratic senators that were just elected. That is awesome, and it shows the power of crypto voters. So in that way, we need to be grateful for Gary's misreading and misrepresentation, because this has given us a huge opportunity to get it right with agencies that do care, that are high integrity, and great folks in the White House and Treasury that are going to write good rules.
Yeah, it is amazing to think of how far the industry has come in 4 years and how powerful of a voice that you have. I think it's remarkable that there are two major pieces of crypto legislation on the House floor at the same time. That is unheard of for any industry usually. So it is remarkable what was able to get accomplished it's speaking out, making sure that your voice is heard in Washington. It's a very important part of, I think, democracy. But so going into this vote that the House has coming up here, they're hoping to get a lot of bipartisan support again. What advice would you have for your colleagues, your former colleagues and members who are trying to work through getting those bipartisan votes, picking up those Democrats who are kind of on the edge? What advice would you give to them and how to secure those votes?
Well, I think engagement over the next week or two is going to be key. So everyone on Capitol Hill you should engage with. Number one. Number two, you should disproportionately engage with Democratic members of the House. There is a great deal of concern around their personal politics, and I'll explain. I don't have to tell you this, that President Trump floods the zone, right? Everything has been about Donald Trump since he came down the escalator in Trump Tower. Now, 10 years ago. Everything is about him. So the debate in committee on market structure and on stablecoins, the debate in the Senate all revolved around Donald Trump. And the bills were not addressing what his children were doing in the world of crypto. That is a complicated question of what you do with presidents who have adult children that live outside the home. We have I told you we have these crazy breakpoints, but after 18, as a parent, as frustrating as it is, you don't have a say over these adults.
I don't have control over my kids right now, and
God
they live in my
bless. Yeah,
house.
same.
So,
Well, I've got a 3.5-year-old, and
yeah,
he's,
you have no
he's
control.
doing whatever he wants. So this is a complicated factor, and it became the key part of the debate on stable coins and market structure in the House. It became the key point around stable coins in the Senate. It has nothing to do with the bill. And in fact, if you step back for a moment and look at the substance of this, we have no law governing what is a digital asset, what is a stable coin at the federal level. This would provide clarity. It would provide a rules-based regime that would apply to, hear me out, everyone, even children of elected office holders. So step back, look at the contents of the legislation. What's in it is what you should be judging it on, not extraneous political items. So the major concern Democratic members of the House have is that the bill doesn't address the issue of Trump. Trump is the issue on everything. So we have to make sure that those Democratic members of the House understand this is good politics for them at home. Their constituents care about crypto. And latest polling that came out in the last week is that voters don't care what the president's kids are doing, which also holds true for 4 years ago under the last president on what kids are doing. So I think that's something that needs to be communicated to Democratic members. And if they vote no because of Trump, that doesn't mean they're pro-crypto. It means that they're not strong enough politically to go explain to their constituents why they voted to regulate crypto and to provide a rules-based regime in the United States. And the fact that we're offshoring this and allowing offshoring the innovation, offshoring the capital formation, offshoring the potential, the massive economic upside. And they're going to have to explain why they weren't in favor of something that was good for America.
And I'm conscious of time. I would love to ask you a bunch of questions because I'm actually testifying tomorrow before Senate Banking, and I need more talking points. So I'm keeping a mental note here. Thank you very much.
Well, I look forward to your interaction with the good junior senator from Massachusetts. I wish you well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it should be fun. But I do want to ask about your kind of career now that you've retired from Congress. You are doing some consulting. You're a distinguished fellow at the Saros Center at Georgetown. How much, I would say for somebody who retired from Congress, this is not how most people would imagine spending retirement. You're probably working just as hard. But
it's not Del Boca Vista.
Yeah. So, but at the end of the day, how much time are you spending on crypto? Is it pretty much all you're working on now? Is it part of what you're working on?
It's part of what I'm working on, and what I try to do is pick a few spots and try to engage in the policymaking process from the outside. And so I'm affiliated with A16Z, Ondo, and a few other smaller crypto projects, but those are my two primary engagements. What I'm trying to do is get the big piece done of market structure. I think that is really what unlocks crypto in the United States. It's already unlocked, it's already uncorked, but how we ensure that no bad election outcome can create a regime like Gary Gensler and Joe Biden put in place for crypto. We cannot withstand a crypto winter in the United States and flourish internationally. This is why we need sound policy on AI and crypto for us to win the next generation of technological warfare. And if we get this right, we're going to win. America wins the future, just like we won the internet 1.0, the web 1.0, 2.0, and now we've got to win the digital future with blockchain technology and crypto. So that's what I'm trying to engage in and keep fostering that debate. I'm excited for you and your new job, having left government and taking on the Blockchain Association and your leadership there. So I'm excited what you're going to do there and the good that you're going to bring there.
Well, thank you. And you're helping some of our members, which is great, because I think you are a great voice in this industry. So, and certainly market structure is so important. The point you made about going backwards and having another Gary Gensler trying to regulate through enforcement is a real threat if we don't get market structure done. And so, we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. It's critically important that we get this done. As now
but
with
on that, on market structure in particular, everyone wants all the details done in legislation. That is not the case. That is not how it's securities or commodities regulation happens. We have agencies that can be thoughtful in the approach. We have agency heads that are pro-crypto, that know how to get things done at these agencies. So what we need is law, and then foundational regulation at these agencies. And once you have that and a market going, it's very difficult to unmoor that. Very difficult to unmoor that. And that is what a whole 90 years of securities and commodities regulation at the federal level has shown us, is that once you have those foundational pieces in, they're here to stay. And then you have whole structures built atop that. So we need to get going, we need to get building, and we need to get the law done so we can get all those things in place as quickly as possible.
I couldn't agree more, and we just have a couple minutes here. So the last question I want to ask you, as you are watching Crypto Week unfold in the House and some major votes coming up, what advice do you have for your colleagues for next week? What should they be thinking about? What should they be preparing for?
Build the vote. Make the vote as big as absolutely possible. Show momentum. And also show how deeply flawed the opposition's arguments are. You have a group of anti-crypto folks that don't actually understand the policy, don't actually understand the technology, and don't understand the policy. It's a very frustrating thing. But you can't make them understand, right? But you have to out-communicate them on what you're doing and make sure that the public understands the unlock here and the potential. The arguments are there, but you've got to make sure that you're communicating more broadly than just those in opposition in the House and in the Senate. And this is going to be a fantastic month for crypto. The biggest bill of the president's term was signing a law on July 4th. One big, beautiful bill. Yep. One big, beautiful act. The second biggest bill of this year will be signing a law in July, and that is a pro-crypto bill with the Genius Act. And then we've got to go build it. So the third is market structure. But those unlocks happen because of the goodwill created that you all helped create in the last election, the wellspring of support that also puts a little fear and trepidation into the hearts and minds of policymakers. And that is a helpful thing, too.
Well, thank you. This was a great chat. I could keep going on and on. I think there's a million things we could talk about, but we are officially out of time. So thank you all very much. Thanks to the Texas Blockchain Association and Angel AI for having us up here this morning.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.